Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today we are from Group 8. We will be presenting on Hassan ibn Attab, also known as Al-Hazan. So first of all, we're going to look at eye, sight, and vision in the Quran. So we're looking at the word basarun and ra'a. For the definition, we define it as the words sight, vision, and light, and there are so many other phrases in the Quran that regards on the topics of optics, and they are mentioned numerous times in the Quran. There are 34 verses in the Quran that is related to visual function, which can actually be explained scientifically. So taken from the word basarun, an Arabic word, if you look at it as a noun, it means it brings the meaning of vision. So what is vision? Vision referring to the Oxford dictionary, it brings the meaning of the ability to see, which are the things that are in front of us, and our eyes allow us to see. That's vision. But vision also means, also brings the meaning as a function of faith, not only serving as a physical element, but also spiritually and emotionally. For example, vision brings the meaning of seeing the world, seeing the future that we have planned, and the goals that we have planned for our future. So now we're looking at the verses and translation regarding on the word basarun and other similar words. So first of all, Surah An-Nahl, verse 77, وَلِلَّهِ غَيْبُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا أَمْرُ السَّاعَةِ إِلَّا كَلَمْهِ الْبَصَرِ أَوْ هُوَ أَقْرَبُ إلى آخر الآية. So the meaning of this ayah is, and Allah is the unseen of the heavens and the earth, and the command for the hour is not but as a glance of the eye or even nearer. So referring to Tafsir al-Jalalain, this ayah actually means that to God belongs the unseen of the heavens and the earth. In other words, the knowledge of what is hidden in them. And in a matter of hour is but as the twinkling of an eye, or it is even nearer since it takes place as a result of the word be, and it is kun fayakun, which means it just happens. Allah just says kun fayakun and it happens in the blink of an eye. Truly, God has power over all things. So basically in this verse, it is mentioned that the day of the judgment will occur in the blink of an eye. Why it says in a blink of an eye? Because we compare it to a blink of an eye because it happens in a very short time. A blinking of an eye takes us approximately 300 to 400 milliseconds, which means in one moment we are living our lives, but then the next second, the day of judgment is already in front of our eyes. This shows how powerful Allah is, and everything is just within a single command from Him. Second of all, we're going to look at Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 83. وإذا سمعوا ما أنزل إلى الرسول ترى أعينهم تفيض من الدمع مما عرفوا من الحق إلى آخر الآية. And when they hear what has been revealed to the messenger, you see their eyes overflow with tears because of the truth they recognize. So this verse, still referring to Tafsir al-Jalalain, this verse was revealed when the Negus delegation from Abyssinia came to him when the prophets recited Surah Yasin, and they cried and submitted to Islam because of how similar this is to what used to be revealed to Jesus alayhi salam. So because of that, their eyes overflow with tears because they recognize of the truth, the real truth that the Al-Quran is actually bringing to them. And then they say, "Our Lord, we believe and we accept the truth of your prophet and your kitab, so inscribe us among the witnesses, those who affirm their acceptance of the truth." So now we're going to look at the because the eyes are organs that can actually produce tears, and these tears are actually liquid that are secreted by the lacrimal glands from inside of our eyes. And our eyes, they are actually covered by a tear film that covers the surface of the eye. It has three layers, which are lipids secreted by oil glands in the eyelids. And when we feel emotional, when we feel sad, or in this ayah, especially, they are feeling emotional because they actually know the truth after so long. So they become emotional, and because of that, they cry. And the tears that they produce actually does not only contain water, but also contains hormones such as prolactin, and so on. Uh, that's all from me. So now, Nick Ryan Jannah will continue the presentation.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And now I will present the third verse that have been chosen out from Surah Yusuf, chapter Yusuf, verse 84. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وتولى عنهم وقال يا أسفا على يوسف وابيضت عيناه من الحزن فهو كظيم. For the translation, and he turned away from them and said, My sorrow for Joseph, and his eyes become opaque and filled with tears on account of the grief then he repressed. For the exegesis, and he turned away from them, no longer addressing them, and said, Alas, my grief for Joseph. Ya Asafa, in that verse, the final alif of Asafa has taken the place of possessive ya of genitive annexation. Ya Asafi, in other words, it means Ya Huzni, oh my sorrow. And his eyes turned white, their dark color means from the dark color turned to white, and their dark color was a face, and became white on account of his tears, with grief for him, such that he was filled with suppressed agony, anguish, and grief-stricken, but not manifesting his grief. Tafsir Jalalain. So, in this verse, it can be explained scientifically because in this verse Al-Quran mentioned that the eyes of Prophet Yusuf's father become opaque and filled with tears, and this shows that eye is a part of an organ which can become opaque, can increase the opacity. So for the scientific finding, we know that our eyes are prone to turn becoming opaque as we aging, as the lenses in the eyes become less flexible, less transparent, and thicker. So, and we know in this verse also, the Prophet Yusuf father is someone who is old and aging, and for the scientific finding also support that age-related and other medical condition causes tissue within the lens to break down and clump together and clouding the small area within the lens. It is relatable as the father of Prophet Yusuf is already old and aging and susceptible to develop this disease. So from this verse, we know that Al-Quran have revealed to us that eye is an organ where due to aging can become opaque, and this some of the verse that we can scientifically explain, and we have also the scientific evidence for to support this verse which come 1,400 years ago. And then we go next to the next surah, which is Surah Al-An'am, verse 103. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم لا تدركه الأبصار وهو يدرك الأبصار وهو اللطيف الخبير صدق الله العظيم. For the translation, vision cannot comprehend him, and he comprehends all visions, and he is the knower of subtleties, the aware. For the exegesis, vision cannot attain him, that is, their eyes cannot see him. This is a denial that applies in particular circumstances, since it is accepted that the believer will see him in the hereafter, as indicated by God's word, which is stated in the Quran. On that day, faces shall be radiant gazing upon their Lord. And also, by the hadith of the two Sheikh, Imam Bukhari and Muslim, verily you shall see your Lord as clearly as you see the full moon at night. And it is also said to mean that its vision cannot encompass him, but he attains all vision, that is to say, he perceives them, whereas they cannot perceive him. It is not possible in the case of anyone other than him to attain all vision, while its vision cannot attain him or encompass him in knowledge, and he is too subtle in dealing with his friends to aware of them. Tafsir Jalalain. And for this verse, we also it can be discussed that the eye and our vision is very limited in many ways because the eye has limited size, therefore limited light gathering power because from the light from the light emission and goes to our eyes and then we can see things and forming the image. But if we have a limited light gathering power, then we have the limited vision, and the eyes has limited frequency response since it can only see electromagnetic radiation in visible wavelength, which is only certain wavelength that we can see. So this shows how our eyes is very limited. We cannot perceive all, but only Allah can perceive all. The Quran have revealed to us that from 1,400 years ago that this eye is very limited, but Allah's vision is not. When we have limited perceiving capability, not all things can be comprehended with our logic. And that is why Al-Quran has been descended to earth for the guidance of human. With Quran and Hadith, we can perceive things that are beyond our vision field by comprehension of meanings, by knowing the knowledge, by knowing the deep meanings behind every words and every verse. So, and now let's move on to the last verse, which is Surah Al-Hajj, verse 46. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله. فإنها لا تعمى الأبصار ولكن تعمى القلوب التي في الصدور. Sadaqallahu Azim. And translation, it's not the eyes that are blind, but it's the hearts which are in the breast that grow blind. For the exegesis, indeed, it is not the eyes that turn blind, but it is the heart, which is the eye or the heart's mean heart here that turn blind within the breast. Alatif sudur to for emphasize. So for the general discussion for this ayah, Allah used this metaphor to show that for one whose eyes are blind can reflect and benefit from the heart. Indeed, it is not the sight that becomes blind, but the heart that becomes blind. Eyes and heart are related to each other, as Allah says, Allah knows the fraud of the eyes and all that the heart conceal. Surah Al-Ghafir, chapter 40 and verse 19. For the eye to blind, human can still survive and gain the Allah blessing in the world. But for the eye of heart to blind, it may survive in this world but not in the hereafter. So and then I will give this presentation for the next person.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Now I'm going to explain about life and career of Ibnu Al-Haytham. Okay, so his real name is Abu Ali Al-Hasan Ibnu Al-Haytham. He been born in city of Basra in southern Iraq around year 965. He got his education in Basra and Baghdad. He then died at Cairo, Egypt at 70 years old around year 1040. He is an Arabic scholar that been known as father of modern optics. He made really big contribution on optic and visual perception. He also been well known at West with name of Al-Hazen. Next, for his life story, Ibn al-Haytham initially been trained for civil service job and was appointed as judge for Basra, but because of some religious problem and conflict, he made decision to focus on his study in science. Ibn al-Haytham been well known with his mathematics and physics knowledge. He also get invitation by Al-Hakim bi Amrullah to settle up a problem in flow of Nile fil- during flood. He proposed on an idea to build up a dam. Unfortunately, when he visited the site, he realized it not suitable to do so. Because of that tragedy, he been imprisoned for about 10 years. During that long period, where he get a true finding about vision and optic with just observing the light that enter his dark room. With all his hard work making all the experiment and others observation, he get to make the big contribution to the world in optic and vision were all being written in his great book of optics. Besides that, Ibn al-Haytham been written a lot of others book like Treatise on Light and Balance of Wisdom. And next, I will give to the next presenter to explain about the field of knowledge for Ibn al-Haytham.
Okay, Assalamualaikum. So now let's move on to the contribution of Ibn al-Haytham in many fields of knowledge, which are astronomy, medicine and psychology, philosophy, mathematics, physics and optics, and also science. Okay, for the first one, which is physics and optics, he made a theory of light and vision is really new and different from all those theories previously in antiquity or in Islam, which means that he has upgraded from the previous one. The next one, the first real appreciation of action of lens, in particular the ability of convex form to produce a magnified image of an object. And he also made a thorough examination of passage of light through various media. He discovered law of refraction and also carried out first experiment to dispersion of light into its constituent colors. Takes part in theory of various physical phenomena like shadows, eclipse, rainbow, and speculated on physical nature of light. He also did explain on binocular vision and gave correct explanation of the apparent increase in size of sun and moon when near horizon. Also well known for early use of camera obscura and pinhole camera. Latest is he had proposed that eyes receive light reflected from objects, which contradicting Ptolemy's and Euclid's theory of vision, which means that he said that the light come from object itself, not from what Ptolemy said that the light comes from the eye, which is truly the same with what we learn in physics today, which said that the light is come from the object. So, through these extensive researches on optics, he has been considered as father of modern optics. So, for the field of astronomy, he also succeeded in determining the Qibla, which is the direction of prayer. He critiques Ptolemaic planetary models as presented in the Amagis and planetary hypothesis. He presents detailed description of physical structure of celestial spheres, that is the Earth as a whole round sphere, whose center is the center of the world. And and he also wrote the book Model of the Motions of each of the 7 planets in 1000, which is this book is one of the most important book in astronomy work. For the field of mathematics, he built on mathematical work of Euclid and Tabit ibn Qurra and went on to systemize infinitesimal calculus, conic section, number theory, and analytic geometry. He led to the formation of equation of fourth degree, and he was the first to realize that every even number is 2 power of n minus 1, where 2 power of n minus 1 is prime, but he was not able to prove this result successfully. But then it was later being approved on the 18th century by user. So, in the medicine of field, he is one of the scholars that well known he had his own contribution in this medical and psychological field. He is also the first and can explain well about the structure of eye and process of vision because from what I've said just now, he is father of modern optics, so he's very well, he's an expert in this field. And he made a really big contribution in eye surgery. So last but not least, in philosophy, his theory regarding knowledge and perception, linking the domains of science and religion, led to a philosophy of existence based on the direct observation of reality from the observer's point of view. He also well known to have articulated a comprehensive theory of knowledge. So now I pass this presentation to Nurfizana.
Okay, next we proceed to contribution of Ibn Haytham on optics. Alright, so as we know that Ibn Haytham is a polymath scientist, which means that he not just focus in optics, but also in wide range of subjects such as mathematics, physics, engineering, astronomy, medicine, and even psychology. But that one which really significant is his contribution towards visual and optics. Alright, which in his optic book, or we call it Kitab Al-Manazir, which is a book of optic, make him famed as the father of optic, and also has been ranked as one of the most influential book ever written in history. Alright, next. Alright, as you see on the slide, here are some of the list of his hypotheses and finding related to vision and optic. But actually there are so many of it, but I just list a few of it. You can just read. But one of the most important finding is how I actually perceive the light. Alright, so in his book, Ibn Haytham proposed that the eyes receive light reflected from the object rather than emitting the light themselves. Alright, this is based on the four factors that he found based on his experiment. Okay, first is the impossibility of seeing in a dark place, therefore prove the eyes cannot emit the light. Second is the inability to look at powerful light sources. And third, a light pass through a hole in the wall into a dark room, so people can only see the lit up area. And the last one is when looking at the stars, eyes can immediately looking at the stars without waiting for the light from the eye to uh, look the stars. Okay. Next is the works of Ibn Haytham concerning the optics. So this is most of his famous book. We call it Kitab Al-Manazir, or the Book of Optics. Actually, the Book of Optics has 7 chapters, but in this presentation, we're just going to go through 3 chapters, right? Chapter 1, Chapter 2, and Chapter 3. So in these books, uh, Ibn Haytham introduced the concept that the eyes were the one perceiving the light instead of the brain. This means that the, the eye is the sensory organ that receives the information first before the brain. Second, there's also complete formulation of laws and reflection and comprehend discovery of refraction. Okay, so all this will be explained by Sohaila after this. Basically, all the hypotheses and finding by Ibn Haytham is based on experimental and detailed observations in order to verify theoretical hypothesis. It means that all his finding and hypothesis is not just based on abstract theory. It all supported by experiments. Alright, so that's what made him a great scientist, because he proved many of beforehand scientists' finding with experimental proof. Okay, so next I pass to Suhaila.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So we will look at book 1 on the manner of vision in general. So this book 1 mainly discuss about on how actually sight does not perceive any visible object unless there is some distance between them. This is mean that if the object lie on the surface of our eye, then we cannot perceive by then the object itself cannot perceive by the sight. Second, sight does not perceive any visible object unless there exists some light possessed or radiates upon the objects. Okay, in this case, if there is, in this case, Ibn Haytham proved us that the object itself emit the light instead of the eye. That is why it can be perceived by the sight. Second, and the third is, in this book, they discuss about short or far sight. This short or far sight, the smallest magnitude that can be perceived by the light also related to the strength or weakness of the site. And lastly, this book discusses about the manner of the radiation of the light. It is believed that the radiation of the light occurs only in a straight line. So this is proven and supported by the experiment done by Ibn Haytham himself, where he observed a radiation of light through a small hole in the dark room. So next, we will go through second book, book 2 on the visible properties, their causes and the manner of their perception. In this book, it discusses about how the sight able to perceive many forms of object other than colors and lights, such as their position, distance, size, surfaces, and more. So, this book also explains that the eyesight perceive pathway that the eyesight will perceive pathway which has difference between the two lights or colors. So this sight can perceive differences between two lights or colors by comparing them with one another, such as the intensity and the strength of the colors. As for the colors, they will travel to the eye accompanied by the light, and sight perceives the color without knowing what color it is. But upon contemplating it further, sight will assimilate it with the nearest colors known to it. That's how we know what color it is. Okay. Lastly, about this second book is they will discuss. This book discuss about how sight perceives the distance due to perception of size, and while the perception of both the visible object, distance, and direction depend upon their position. Exactly, these three books discuss many more about the things and phenomena occur in our life. So this is the some that we highlight in this presentation. And lastly, we will look at book 3 on errors of direct vision and their causes. So, sight may have error in what it perceives of visible object. Sight will perceive a distant, for example, sight will perceive a distant object's magnitude as smaller than its real magnitude and vice versa. Okay. Another example, when we are looking at the stars, sight will perceive them as non-moving objects in the sky, though they actually move in the sky. And the second example, the rising moon may appear in the water and in the sky, although there is only one moon exists for sure. Why does this happen? This is occur because there is reflection from the water to the moon in the sky. That's why we can see there is moon in the sky and there is moon in water. Lastly, this book mainly comprehend and explain on how and what causes those errors to occur by mainly doing with some experiments. So the book 3 mainly discuss on experiments to prove that there is error regarding our sight. So that's all from us. Thank you for listening, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.